RAAIJ. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Now, you studied, I think, civil engineering and architecture in Delft, but right from the start, I believe, you've been looking at your work and also at your field with some doubts and some thoughts, right?
Yeah, I mean, both civil engineering and architecture aren't both like the pinnacle of human-centered design, I think. And so from the start, I was looking at for the human perspective there. And since I've come to see myself as a designer, which I'm not trained as from the start, and also when I became a dad, I became even more critical. It's these, it's kind of these existential questions that haunt me as a designer. Am I really able to deliver something? Am I able to make a difference here?
Yeah.
You know?
Are these also maybe the questions we're looking at the screens now? It says here, does this deliverable help the client understand people's lives, for instance?
Yeah, so it's questions that pop up in my head that you'll see in the presentation that make me think of myself as a designer and how I can use my toolbox to actually really make a difference. Because we're doing a lot of work. Some of us are earning good money, you know, but are we really making a difference for the people out there?
Does it matter?
Yeah, does it really matter?
Yeah.
Can we deliver tangible results for a tenant, for a citizen? I think that's important to think about.
Do people sort of recognize these kinds of questions? I can see some nodding. You need to really wave at me because I can't really see you. Some nodding here. Yeah, that's interesting to know. So you own a studio called Zeewaardig in Dutch, which I think would translate as seaworthy. Why is it called?
Well, I think as a designer, we have a toolbox it's wonderful. We have a great toolbox that can help other people solve the big challenges that we're facing. But you really need to leave behind some of your old habits. And I mean, it's risky doing design, or it's risky to be creative. And I think you have to let go of your old habits. And in essence, people want to stay in their safe harbor. I mean, you're more there, you're happy there, but we think you have to
It's comfortable.
It's comfortable there, yeah. And I think it's important to get your team together, to ready your vessel, and to set out on that explorative journey. And that's hence Zeewaardig, because I think we help people and individuals become a little bit more ready and to create the courage to set out and sail into those
to surf the waves.
For the design to have the design journey. Yeah.
I think also when I was reading about your work and how you approach it, if you like, words like distress, for instance, I think you mention them quite a bit when you talk about the work that you do. Tell me how that works for you. When do those kinds of feelings occur, maybe?
Well, let me set an example. We do a lot of more regular service design work, but apart from that, we are more and more asked to use our expertise for spatial challenges, for social challenges, where a government, where a municipality or another public organization asks us to really design and facilitate a co-design or a participatory project. And one of these projects is a housing corporation and a public and a project developer.
Social housing?
Social housing, yeah.
Okay.
And they want to demolish a building, and there's a lot of people living there. They want to redesign and redevelop that. And they ask, so do you want to do that for us? Do you want to help us get that project going? And do you want to play a part in this participatory project? And that's the moment where these questions arise. I mean, do I really want to be part of a project? I mean, am I not becoming a tool of this developer who just wants to make money?
It almost sounds like whose side am I on in this project?
Definitely.
Okay.
I mean, am I on the side of the one who pays my bill? Because that's definitely not the tenants. No. Or am I allowed to be on the side of the people living there?
So how do you know? How do you find out what you can do and what side you want to be on or can be on?
Well, for us, I think it's in this particular case, for instance, we thought about, okay, there have to be a couple of requirements that before we start out on this project.
You approach the client and say,
we had a discussion with the client saying, okay, we could do this, but there's a couple of things, a couple of guarantees that you have to give us. And one of those was are you really interested, and is there time and money and space in the project for you to really dive into people's lives? Are you interested in how a tenant experiences a project like this? Secondly, that was what I mentioned before. Am I allowed to stand next and to represent the interests of the tenants here, and not just represent your interests here?
Yeah.
And finally, I mean, is there even room or space in the plans or the time,
The timeline,
or for making changes? There's a lot of these projects happening where beforehand you already know there's little wriggle room, and if you cannot commit to these tenants, to the people, to citizens, that you can actually make a difference, then I think you shouldn't do it.
Have you said no before?
Yeah, I've said no before.
Yeah.
Or halfway we've said no, since
Right.
we can't continue
This-
this
no.
if this is the case.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's difficult, of course. I mean, you have people that you have to pay, so it's definitely a discussion that we internally have a lot. And do we want to do this? And for this project, I'm actually pretty happy we said yes, because I think we managed to make a difference here, I think.
I think it also has a lot to do with trust, doesn't it? The whole process, really.
Yeah, I think it definitely boils down to the question, can I be a trustworthy partner of people, of the citizens or the other people that are facing the effects, the outcome of a project? And it's also about building trust. I mean, recently there's been a lot of things where trust issues arise between government and people. I mean, there's definitely...
In these times, I think this is a massive subject.
It's a major issue, yeah. And I think as a designer, using imagination, but also being curious, daring to experiment, having this courage, I think are all elements that actually help build trust. And that's also why I previously said that I think we have a very powerful toolbox to build trust and but also to guarantee that you can be a trustworthy partner.
So how do you measure, or how do you know that either the client, or in this case the tenant, ended up trusting you, that there was a trustworthy relationship?
Well, I think, though it's difficult to, I mean, from the outstart we said we don't want to be in between the parties. We're a party that, but you end up being in between the parties. So it's the tenants that confide in us what they're angry about, or what their
worries, or
their worries and their anxieties, and letting us translate that, for instance, to the housing corporation. So that's one thing, but it's also a simple thing like, I mean, I have a 5-month-old daughter. She doesn't have a place at the kindergarten yet, so I had to take her to a meeting, and they're okay with it. And even one of them just held her and fed her with a bottle. And that's, I mean, at the point where your professional and private things kind of merge.
It becomes human, in a way, the whole process. No?
Very valuable. And well, even now I can feel it, that this is basically what I'm doing my work for.
Yeah. So this is also probably, when you think about yourself at the end of the day, have I achieved something? This will be what you think about.
Yeah, and of course also more concrete things that you could also measure. But in the end, it boils down that you can look yourself in the mirror and say, "Well, I think I've achieved something today."
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're welcome.
I can imagine that this has sparked some questions. You know the drill. You can wave at me very vigorously and I'll see you. When it's your turn, you can walk up to the microphone and introduce yourself. I see 1 and 2. Go on. Ta-da!
Hello. Lieke van der Bijl, TU Delft, Design for Social Innovation. Thank you so much for your provocative questions. I think they're really great and very important to ask. I kind of reframed my question into social innovation from how can design make a difference in the world to, if we look at social innovation that is successful in the world, what can we learn from that? And one of the things I've done is to study really successful social innovation practices, look at what the role of design is, and look at, what kind of other practices do we see there, and what can we learn from that. And one of the things that I've noticed is that innovation agencies that seem to be very successful in making a difference, they are really committed, like you were also talking about commitment, really committed to particular themes, and they engage with those themes for a very long time. So an example is the Australian Centre for Social Innovation, who basically commit almost solely to child protection. And therefore, because they've been doing this for 10, 15 years already...
Could I ask you to ask your... I'm so sorry,
yes,
but I
sorry.
want other people to... It's very interesting.
I apologize. I apologize.
No, that's okay, but...
Do you see this opportunity for long-term commitment in your practice? And if so, what could it look like?
Thank you.
That was really well done. Like, you wrapped that up so nicely. Well done. Thank you.
I think in one way, yes. I mean, we are really interested in these spatial issues, and so there's these themes that we work around, and that helps us also get practice in those specific fields and experience in working there. I think it's also a matter of getting your clients to basically free up the budget for long-term projects, because you can only do something when you're there for a couple of years, Yeah. I mean, most effects only take place after a while. So you have to be there for the long term. And one way that we're also looking at is convincing our clients that it's not just a project outcome that you can achieve by doing it with designers, doing a project with designers, but there's also these kind of intangible effects like networking or like creating agency, giving people more trust, that really help build a social fabric and urban fabric on a local scale, that are really valuable, that are really, I think, worth investing for instance, the government. Yeah,
yeah, because once you've gone, that will still stay with them, and
exactly.
They'll still harness that power and what they've learned and how they've really felt to stand up for
Definitely.
themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you. Time for the second question. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Anja Overdijk, Rotterdam University of Applied Sciences and associated to the RAAIJ University. Thank you for this ethical stance really on design practice and on the room, the space design practice needs for this. And my question goes more into, we know that from transition science that we need to do a lot of interventions and experiments to get to this tipping point where we will see impact. So my question is it enough to make local impact and really make sure to make local impact and to trust that at some point when we all make local impact, it will get to this tipping point?
Thank you so much.
I think it's really important that, I mean, though the tangible impact, the tangible effects have to be felt by citizens, by tenants, by people. I think it's also important to think about that we need to change the organizations that give us our work. I mean, it's like 50 people here. I mean, we want to, but we can't change the world. And I think that's what I'm also thinking, the toolbox that we have, I think it's worth sharing, and it's worth getting other people and organizations to learn our ways a little bit. So I think one way of being sure that something happens when you're gone is not only, is really make effort of changing the organizations that you work with and teaching, learning them how to be more open, creative, curious, etc.
Yeah, it's very structural in that sense. I think that will make the difference because it's spreading.
Yeah,
yeah,
and then they can apply that also in different places in
yeah, and then all of a sudden we multiply with 50 here, but we're actually 5,000.
Exactly.
BJØRN van RAAIJ, thank you so much.
Thank you.